Yeah, hi guys. I had the mic on mute. I'm trying to get a guest in here, and so we're working out the bugs. I didn't get back to the
Right.
hotel until.
Levi, you're in with Murd and I. He doesn't know how to invite me on to be a guest in the YouTube. Is he on StreamYard?
I'm on EV Bucks, Mux, Levi. It works a little about the same because you click the link, but I was trying to put the thing in the comment section and somehow not able to. Alright, I'll post it. Control P. Oh, that didn't work.
It won't let you copy and paste the link and put it into the chat.
Yeah, it sent me into a weird window. Oh, control print. I don't want print.
What is the program called that you use?
It's EV Mux. MUX. Yeah, I don't know how many um, users I can have on Zoom without getting too carried away with cost. What I'm trying to do, I'm trying to get a guest in here um, and trying to figure out how to do it. It says invite guest. I hit guest, and it's just not letting me do it. So I'm just having to troubleshoot. So be patient, everybody. We'll figure this out. Because if I have to, we'll just do it over the phone, audio only. Because I think. See what happens if I. Okay, now I'm going to mute the mic.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to find out here pretty quick if I got this worked out. And we did. And my guest, Kim, is on the air. And okay, now, Kim, say hello to everybody. I got to see if we've got you on audio.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're all set.
All right.
Finally. Sorry about the delay, folks, but this isn't CNN. Okay, now, Kim, why don't you go ahead and kind of give a summation of what happened at court today, and then after that we'll do the Q&A like we did last night. Now, I'll be watching here, and I can bring it over to me where I can read you the question like I just did below, because I don't know if you can read it on your screen.
Okay. Can everybody hear me? Can someone just say yes, they can hear me in the audience? I can't really see a chat, so Mark, tell me if they can hear.
Okay, let me. Okay, so far, can everybody hear Kim? Because they're chatting away here and I don't see, I can hear you. Okay,
Yes, okay, they can hear me. Okay.
I think we're all set. Catherine said,
Okay. Thanks for the wait, everybody. Sorry for the delay. We're in two different hotel rooms. We are both still in Ocala, but we are in two different hotel rooms tonight because I'm tired and I want to go to bed. Yes. All right, so this was day 2 of the Neely Petrie Blanchard trial. Today, as you know, yesterday they impaneled the jury pool of 12 jurors and 1 alternate. And so today the judge gave thorough instructions to the jury, the normal instructions about listening to the evidence, about not going on their phone or looking up the case or going on social media, speaking to anyone about the case. And then we had opening statements. So as I said yesterday, I was very taken aback that Neely was not combative with the judge or the state and that it was actually going pretty smoothly. Today was a bit different. So today she showed her ass to the judge in opening statements. So first, the opening statement was by the state attorney because it's their burden of proof and they go first. The female prosecutor, Amy, and I think it's Burke, you can prove me wrong, I don't know, said she started off with the jury by saying that Neely Petrie Blanchard, and pointing to her, shot Chris Hallett 7 times and left him to die on the kitchen floor. And she spoke about where he was shot, that Neely shot him on the side of his chest, on the front of his chest. And I'm sorry, I'm reading notes. Then the gun jammed. She then cleared the gun and walked over to the kitchen where he was lying. And then he was shot once in the back and twice in the arm. And to make sure she shot him, that he was gone, she shot him 2 more times in the back of the head. So then she spoke about how Chris was had beliefs in the E-clause system and, sovereign citizen belief system, which he did, although he didn't refer to himself as a sovereign citizen. They did speak of him as his background, that he had a child with his first wife who was named Dawn. She was there today and she gave testimony. She seemed very nice. She got along with Chris, even to the day that he died. They had a child together, and their child was apparently taken away. We didn't even know that, and she didn't admit that, nor did the prosecutor state that until Neely cross-examined Dawn. So we do know that Dawn and Chris had a child named Matthew, and he was taken away from them by DCF and only given back to them at age 17. So then he divorced Dawn. They still got along and married the second wife. And she was described as someone who made false allegations against him. And he lost those children also to the mother, who then went back to Ohio. And he became so disillusioned with the system that he started doing things himself as opposed to hiring attorneys. And that is how the whole E-clause thing came to be. So we then heard from the state about what Neely would have to prove if she was trying to use the defense of temporary insanity. And the state, had gone into the burden of proof, as I did last night, but the state wanted to make sure that the jury heard the evidence that would tend to move the juries away from the fact that she could have been temporarily insane. She said that to listen to Neely's words when she was getting arrested, that she was able to understand and abide by the commands of the arresting officer. She was even able to give legal advice to Robert, her husband, and told Robert not to speak. Went over with Robert what the spousal privilege was and that they couldn't make him speak about her. Told Robert about Miranda warnings. So she was very with it. She was not in a place where she didn't know what she was doing. She was also cooperative with the police. She also said that she absolutely knew what she was doing was wrong because they pinged her phone. And after Neely shot Chris Hallett, they had pinged her phone and they found her in that Lawrence County, Georgia. I'm just going to say Georgia.
It's Lowndes, L-O-U-N-D-S.
Lowndes? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Lowndes County, Georgia, because they pinged her phone, and that's where she was there, she said, to pick up her husband, Robert. So I don't know what Robert was doing in Georgia, but Neely drove to pick him up. She shot Chris just before 9 o'clock. She almost shot Shannon and Liliana, the child, but the gun had jammed. And that was about it with regard to the state. Then came Neely's opening argument. I can honestly say I've never seen a trial where someone was objected to more and had sustained objections more than the trial I sat through today. When someone makes an objection and the court sustains that objection, that means it's a good objection. And so the person cannot continue to ask that question. If it's overruled, then that means that the objection is not going to be granted by the court and the attorney can continue asking the question. In this particular case, as I said I think day one, prior to the trial, I was guessing that the state attorney may object to Neely nonstop and get her, let her lose her composure, get her off of her script. That's exactly what the state attorney did. She objected nonstop. Neely could not get out 2 sentences. And it wasn't just because of the objections. It was wholly improper. I'm going to give you some of the things that Neely was talking about in her opening. She was reading from notes, so she was completely going off of a script. And I'll give you some of the verbiage of how she started out. This is a story of love, truth, and innocence, shock and sadness. I can't believe that he's gone, and I'm accused of murdering him. It's so sad that he's gone. I'm standing up for fighting for my life and for Chris's legacy. I want the truth to be revealed about my mentor and my friend. He will be in the courtroom with me spiritually. Objection, sustained. She started talking about goodness, humanity. Objection, sustained. She then started to tell the juror and give them instructions on excusable homicide. Objection, sustained. She is not the person that's going to be charging the jury with jury instructions, nor is she charged with excusable homicide. So objection, sustained. Then she was talking about this was in the heat of passion, and that any parent would have experienced if they believed that their child was being hurt. There's a difference between murder and manslaughter. Objection, sustained. In the Bible, ... objection, sustained. The family can hold directly from the Creator. Objection, sustained. The court said, listen, lady, you're presenting argument. They're irrelevant. It's improper. You need to talk about what evidence that you're going to present to the jury in this case. Talk about the evidence. Argument comes at closing. You need to talk about the evidence that's going to be presented. Then she said, okay, I will present to you on why you should ultimately be finding me not guilty. I had to fire my attorney. Objection, sustained. I was looking for a counselor. Objection, sustained. Before I fired my attorney, this was like the lady could not understand what the court was trying to instruct her. The court again said, talk about the evidence you had, not about your old attorney or why you fired him. And then she went on to say about supreme wisdom, and she wanted them all to keep an open mind, to scrutinize every detail, to exonerate her from first and second degree murder, even though she's not charged with second degree murder. She started talking about her children were taken by a corrupt judicial system. Her oldest daughter was sexually, mentally, and physically abused for years, and the judicial system failed to protect her. And she was one of the main leaders in the parental rights movement. Objection, objection, sustained, sustained. Then she pointed at the state attorneys and said, and the bar attorneys helped cover up this abuse for years. Objection, sustained, objection, sustained. The trafficking of human beings. Objection, sustained. The fact is that Chris was going after the Department of Revenue, and what those prosecutors don't want you to know is that Chris was serving as a loss prevention officer for the United States government. Objection, sustained. Chris and I were following an executive order to prevent fraud on the court by this court prosecutors and misconduct resulting in emoluments violations. All right, now let's play sovereign citizen bingo. We got one word, that's emoluments, all right? So everybody get out their sovereign citizen bingo card, because we're going to frickin' hit them all tonight. Ready? The Supreme Court in 1935, objection sustained. These prosecutors have been trying to paint me as some far-right. Objection sustained. It's no coincidence that me and Donald Trump, the true commander, are both going through jury selection today. That is not a coincidence. Objection sustained. This was ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Then she started calling them woke prosecutors that doesn't think that our voice matters. She was trying to rally up the jury, and they were looking at her like, you are freaking crazy, lady. The judge is raising her voice at her. Every time there's an objection, she continues to talk now over the objections, even when the judge is sustaining the objections and telling her to stop. Neely then starts keeping going with her sentences and her script. The judge then has to start raising her voice. at Neely. Now, again, we did not see that combative attitude yesterday, but Neely was intent to show her ass to the court today like a typical sovereign citizen. So she was actually buying into everything that the prosecution was trying to argue. And that was a very bad look in front of the jury, that she was unable to control herself. She was unable to listen to the authority, which is the judge, and to follow the rules. She was talking about our war and our government. The judge stops her and said, listen, please stop talking about the government. The judge was very frustrated, continues to ask her to please just speak about the evidence that she intends to present. Then she said, I'd like to read for everybody you, Chris and I's favorite document. I'm sitting there going, my head is spinning. I'm going, you just freaking murdered this guy. You're not his friend, okay? You murdered him. You're on trial for murdering. He's not there helping you spiritually in this case. No. So I'd like to read for you Chris and I's favorite document. And then I'll have real news on why January 6th really happened. Can we all say it? Let's all together now. Objection, sustained. All right.
Objection.
She went through the 1776 of Congress, objection sustained. So everybody, if you had 1776 on your bingo card for the sovereign citizens, go ahead. You've got a coverall there. The judge continued to yell at her. She continued to talk over the judge. The judge finally said, that's it. Dismiss the jury. Bring them back. So the judge actually dismissed the jury for a moment to speak with Neely in private. Then you know you're in trouble when that happens. So the judge then, after the jury was out of the courtroom, she said, Miss Petrie Blanchard, if you don't follow the rules of court, we're going to have a contempt hearing here. You're violating every rule. When I say stop, you need to stop. Your arguments are not appropriate and you have to follow the rules. I am not going to stop you again, or you're going to be stopped from presenting your opening. You are blatantly violating the rules that everyone has to follow. And Neely says, but this is all relevant. And the judge says, it is not relevant. I don't care that you think it is. It is not. And if you don't stop, I will send you to jail for contempt. And then Neely says to the judge, FYI, I've been there in jail for already 3.5 years. Oh boy, the judge did not like that. Continued to scold her, but that just kind of showed you where Neely's head was. She was kind of, going off the cliff. And she told the judge that she has the right to prove what's going on. And the judge in finality said, I'm not going to let you do that. You're not presenting something that's inappropriate and irrelevant. The only thing at issue here is whether or not you committed an intentional, premeditated homicide of Chris Hallett, and whether or not you should be held not guilty by reason of insanity, and then be held not criminally liable. So then the judge brings the jury back in, and Neely was not allowed to finish an opening, and the judge said, first witness, please, to the state attorney. So that's where we were in opening, and then we'll get through the witnesses. Any questions from anyone?
Let's see. Okay, let's see who we got. Take a little bit of time here for questions. We're getting a lot of comments. He's already jumped off that cliff.
I agree, Rebecca.
We are just go ahead and continue on, Kim.
Okay. But it was just really surprising to me that she was sitting there trying to promote and support Chris Hallett, the guy we're at his murder trial, lady. You shot him. So it was just, acting like, and all the entire day, whatever witness was up there, she was very territorial over Chris, almost a jealousy. She wanted, you could tell that she thought of herself as the closest one to Chris, the one that knew all of his secrets, the one that he liked the best, the one that was helping Eclaws the most. Also, even with all the cops and everybody that the crime scene and people that had testified about the crime scene, She was very territorial over whether or not his computers were taken or if they took his papers or her papers, as if
Yeah,
the
you got a
government
question.
was trying to hide his papers because they were somehow say the secrets to the end of the world. I mean, and
Yeah.
they were going to take his computer. I was just in my mind saying, lady, it's over, right? Nope. He doesn't have any teachings anymore. It's over. E-Clause is over. You're done. Chris is dead because of you. And no one cares what's on his computer, which is sitting in the evidence room forevermore. All right. So it's over. But she wanted to know where all of the computers were in his papers and who looked at them and all. It's ridiculous. Is there a question?
Yeah, you got a question. Uh, LK wants to know if she can have uh, a lawyer at any time, which
Yes,
I believe is a
absolutely.
yes.
The judge has consistently notified her that all she has to do is say the word, and she will have a public defender appointed. The public defender's office is right there in the building, usually is in most courthouses. And they would be able to assign someone who would probably be a quick study. This isn't, too complex of a case. It's your typical murder one. So, I mean, I could, probably read a few things and then step in to help someone in this case. And then you'd have some read time overnight or until the state finished their witnesses to maybe put on, your own case in chief. And so a public defender would be great for Neely. If I were Neely's friend, I would be encouraging her to have an attorney because she is failing without an attorney. She doesn't know. It's not that she's stupid. She's not. She's smart. But I'm a lawyer, for instance. If I would know how to fill a cavity. So it's not that I don't know. I'm not stupid either. But I'm not a dentist. I'm not a licensed dentist, so I wouldn't know how to fill someone's cavity. That doesn't make me stupid. It means that I don't have any training in that. So that would be an epic fail on my part if I tried to fill someone's cavity. And she is committing also multiple epic fails in that courtroom. She is not trained. She has no idea what to argue. She doesn't know what is relevant and the rules of court. Also, none of her arguments are cutting in. If she even speaks about politicians, Donald Trump, child trafficking, even the very beginning of the sentence, or the supremacy clause, or anything this sovereign citizen stuff, or the QAnon stuff, which is now, firmly melded together. Instant objection, or the court just goes ahead and lets her know that that is irrelevant to who shot Chris Hallett, if it was intentional homicide, if it was premeditated, and whether or not she was legally temporarily insane at the time. Those are the things that are at issue. This is not an opportunity for a sovereign citizen or a QAnon follower to bring in their beliefs. This is not where that's going to happen. And I think that she's learning real quick that everything she ever learned from Chris and Kirk is right out the window. It's not working. It's not being allowed to come out of her mouth. She's being objected to. The court has tightened the leash. It is completely irrelevant. Whether or not children are being trafficked in this world is not relevant to who killed Chris Hallett, whether it was premeditated and intentional, and whether or not she was temporarily insane at the time. That's the only thing at issue here. Not whether her kids were trafficked, not why she would have done it, nothing. So with that said, yes, she could have an attorney. I encourage her to because she's really not able to even come up to a subpar level at all in this case. And she today showed the jury that other side of her, the combative, angry, flippant side, the dangerous side. You start to get that, it's that boiling over of the January 6th talk, the 1776, and you just start going, I remember seeing all that on the TV on January 6th. No, thank you. I remember people like you. That's what the jury was thinking. All right, a little wiretap has Randy talking to Neely before the murder. Would not doubt it. Wonder who is in Neely's
Anything's
ear.
possible, although they got all the recordings.
Yes, we heard some recordings today. Also, what is going to be coming that we have not heard yet, that I'm excited to hear, is the state attorney in its opening was actually telling the jury what evidence that it intended to present. And the state attorney notified the jury that it had a tape recording of Neely Petrie Blanchard calling her friend Kathy Watson right after she committed the crime and telling Kathy Watson, and the state attorney was quoting, that she had shot Chris Hallett, that I just shot Chris. I thought about it beforehand and I prayed upon it beforehand and I had to do it. So apparently Neely, in her own voice, there was a taped confession. That was, as we talked last night, that motion to suppress for the clergy privilege and how important that was to keep that Kathy Watson tape out of evidence. And she wasn't able to do it because she did not know the legal standards. I mean, most attorneys, I would think, I could have, probably had that tape recording suppressed and thrown out because you could have made a credible argument for the clergy privilege. But she didn't know how. So unfortunately for her, that is going to come in. And the jury will hear her in her own voice talking to one of her good friends, stating that she did just commit the crime. She did shoot Chris Hallett. Also, it was her voice. It wasn't somebody's other computer. It wasn't Shannon who had the login information for Chris's computer doing a voiceover and no, it was really Neely. How do we know? Because the cops were pinging her phone. They knew exactly where she was. They also have her phone records. Her phone pinging on the way to Georgia was calling Kathy Watson, going down the street pinging. Also, she was texting everyone, said the state attorney, making up excuses why she had shot Chris Hallett as she's driving down the road to Georgia, pinging all the way to Georgia. So no, it wasn't someone else, wasn't a voice changer. It was really Neely Petrie Blanchard who was making those phone calls, texting, and who eventually they found pinging all the way to Georgia in front of a gas station in Georgia. And ping, there you go, you're arrested in cops. That's how that worked. All right. We got another question.
No.
Yes,
Comment.
all because of bad advice. Yes. This was horrible. I mean, it's so cringe. Everybody here has got a profession or something that they do well, whether it be a hobby or whatever. And you can almost imagine you watching someone else being told a completely wrong way of doing something that you're real good at or that you know a lot about. And you just want to, you're cringing going, oh, don't tell them to do that. Oh, don't listen to that. That's wrong. That's what I was doing the whole day. And I could tell that you've got these sovereign citizen QAnon child trafficking arguments coming out. And the jury was looking at her like, lady, you did do this. You're one of those people that can get violent and believe in that crap. And again, no evidence about child trafficking is even allowed to come out. Nothing. She stopped mid-sentence every time. She has not submitted anything by way of evidence yet. It's not her time to do that, but she has not done that. Any other questions?
Yeah, and I washed it off the board. Somebody want to ask that one question again? Let's see. Let me go up.
I'm hoping I'm explaining this in a way where you guys can kind of understand and kind of be there with us in the courtroom. That's what I'm trying to give you a sense of the, how it looked, how it,
Oh, here's the $10,000 question. Is Shannon going to testify?
I would presume that she's going to testify. And that's one thing I wanted to tell you guys is today, Liliana, Shannon's daughter, testified. If you recall, Liliana was around 15 at the time of this crime. And she was living in the house with her mother, Shannon, and Chris. She testified today. She is now 20 years old. She was a bit timid and soft-spoken, as you can imagine. She's sitting there confronted for the first time with the person that she saw commit a homicide to someone that apparently Liliana, the daughter, really loved Chris. They were very close. I mean, Chris had gotten her computer and all of these things. So it's almost like this father figure that she had never experienced or hadn't before. And she was horrified and traumatized by this. Also, she testified about how Neely raised the gun to her and tried to shoot her and her mom. But unfortunately, or fortunately for her, the gun had jammed. So if you'd like, I can go through some of Liliana's testimony tonight with you. But yes, I would expect Shannon to testify. I know that they're both here, I would assume, from Michigan. It's where I hear they live. And so I think that the state may save Shannon towards the last day of their case in chief. I'm not sure, but I would want to save some of the most powerful evidence I have for the jury for my last closing remarks and closing witnesses. So we may need to wait another day or so for Shannon, or they might choose to just put her up tomorrow. I don't know. So I'm hoping tomorrow's my last day here. So I'm hoping that she does testify tomorrow. So I could give you a breakdown of her testimony. But we don't know the list of witnesses. No one knows the order of witnesses, not even Neely, nor the court. They can call witnesses as long as they've disclosed their witness list of who they're going to call, which they did. They can bring those parties in any order. Any other questions?
So far, no. The YouTube is acting up tonight. My numbers are going all over the place. Right now, we're down to 2 people. So
yeah, we've clearly got more than 2 people.
Than 2 people in here. There's something wrong with the...
That's all right. All right, so let me tell you just about some of the witnesses. After the opening statements were finished, the state got to call their witnesses. And in criminal trials, the state attorney has the burden of proof to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty of the crimes charged. So they will go first with their case in chief, is what they call it. So they put on all of their evidence. And then after their case is closed, then Neely would get a chance to put on her case in chief and to call her witnesses and put on her evidence, if any. And also, with regard to the witnesses that the state is putting on now, the state will question them first. Then Neely always gets a chance to cross-examine all of those witnesses. And then the state will have another chance at what's called redirect. And then that's over with the questioning for that witness. What I thought was horrible again about Neely not having an attorney and instead listening to ladies from Canada and people on Telegram and people that want to pretend that they're a judge, who clearly aren't a judge, or they would have given her better advice. I digress, sorry. But what was also horrible was that Neely did not realize how to subpoena witnesses. So she should have done what's called a notice of subpoena to the witnesses for the state so that she could then bring them in her case in chief. Because there were people that she'd even tried to present some evidence of an inconsistent statement or something inconsistent that a person had said before. And she wanted to play something or a tape or something like that. The court said, no, it's not time for you to do that. That's in your case in chief. But then once that witness was over for the state excused the witness. Why? Because Neely hadn't subpoenaed that witness. So then Neely would lose the ability to call that witness again and to impeach that witness's testimony. So again, these are technical things that you really, if your life's on the line, you need to have an attorney there. Hi, Catherine Graves, lovely lady. All right, secondhand embarrassment for Neely. I agree. I really do agree. All right, let's go down the witnesses that actually testified today. The first witness for the state was Dawn Bowers. That is Chris Hallett's first wife, the one who still gets along with him. I don't know why they called her. She didn't have much to say. I think they called her as kind of a person that would make Chris seem more human and not just, this sovereign citizen guru type of guy, because she really did still enjoy Chris's company. She had even lived with him for a while after they were divorced, etc. Um, but that was about it. Then Neely, when she cross-examined Dawn, you could tell she was almost jealous of Chris's first wife, tried to make it seem like, Chris knew her, Neely, better than Dawn, or that Chris was closer to Neely more than Dawn. It was always, she was asking her, so when did you first hear about me? This is what she's asking the first wife. The wife's like, I don't know, remember speaking with anyone about you. Did Chris tell you that I was involved in E-Clause? So it was this jealousy type of thing between Neely trying to make us believe that Chris liked her more than the first wife or something. It was very off-putting. There was many things that were objected to. She started asking Dawn if she knew about Chris's algorithms and that type of shit. Then she started asking her about how Chris had lost his children. There was many objections. She started asking if she knew that he was working for Donald Trump, and even his ex-wife, who was real close with him, said no. That was about it. That was just not a very interesting. I mean, Neely was just very combative
They
and
probably got it.
jealous.
Oh, I'll figure back.
Yeah, Neely was just being very petty with that witness. So then the next witness was the 911 dispatcher. I think we've all heard on Mert's channel the 911 call. And that witness was just there to bring forth, this was the call. This was my signature on this tape. Yes, that's the call that was made. And Neely, couldn't really get anywhere with that. The 911 call of Shannon being hysterical, traumatized, hyperventilating, that was played to the jury. The jury was intently watching and listening to that tape. Some people had a heart that were wincing. One of the jurors had a tear in their eye to hear anyone in that, so terrified and horrified and thinking that they're probably going to be next to be killed. So that was extremely powerful evidence for the state. Neely couldn't touch that. The next witness was Michael Furdette, a major crimes detective. He was one of the first responders on the scene, actually the first responder, but just stayed outside on the perimeter, kind of looked around. He also identified some of the pictures of the exterior of the home. Neely, could have just let him go because he really didn't have much to add except just the photos of the house. But of course, she wanted to go and show her ass even to the cop. Of course, what did she ask first to the cop? What's your badge number? Oh yeah, sovereign citizen. So if you have what's your badge number on your sovereign citizen bingo card, go ahead and cover it up. All right. So what's your badge number? Also, she would ask everyone, did you serve in the military? And if they said yes, what branch? When were you active duty? How long? Everything was objected to. No, of course that is not relevant to whether or not she shot Chris Hallett intentionally with premeditation and was sane at the time. That's the only thing at issue. She needs to understand that. So whether or not she was just almost curious about where did you train? Objection sustained, objection sustained. Any questions before I move on?
Okay, questions, people. Any questions?
Mark, did you have any questions for me?
Not really. Because and we were both there, and you're pretty well going over it. So
Okay.
You can go ahead and keep going.
All right.
Just keep an eye on your screen. I'll put a question up on the screen if it comes up.
Okay. All right, I'll try to look for that. All right, the witness number 4 was a patrol deputy, Milton Scott Manchester. And what was Neely's first question for him? Ready? What's your badge number? All right. Were you in the military? For how long? When did you start? When did you end? Where did you do active duty? Blah, blah, blah. Objection sustained, objection sustained. He also showed he wore a body cam. He was one of the initial responders. He was one of the in the entrance team, the cops that went and entered the home to clear the home. So he wore a body cam, and so that body cam was shown to the jury. It did not show him going inside the house. It showed him outside the house prior to going in. They were kind of, with their flashlights trying to look in the windows. That was before Shannon and the child had run out of the house. And then while he was there, I guess some cops were waving them out the back door. And here comes Shannon and the child running out the back sliding glass door into the backyard and being, told by the cops, go to the front, into the trooper's car. And they are hysterically crying, hyperventilating. I just never heard so much terror in such raw terror in someone's voice. Shannon was crying, and oh my God, and the child was crying and hyperventilating, almost like these squeaks of actual fear. It was horrible. And the jury just, it was horrible. Jury really heard that. Let's see. Neely, of course, could not touch that.
They wanted to know the number of witnesses the state has.
I forgot. I think it was like, what, 12?
I think it was 12 to 17, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Relatively low number.
Yeah. The next witness was Liliana. Now, that was an extremely powerful witness. Again, this is Liliana Tanis, Shannon's daughter. She was 15 at the time and was living in the house. She was an eyewitness to the murder, and Neely had allegedly attempted to shoot her as well, but the gun jammed. So her testimony was extremely powerful. She was now 20 years old, and the state attorney brought her as their witness. She explained living in Ocala with the mother and Chris. She had lived with Chris at his house for about 3 to 6 months, that her mother was dating them. She didn't know much about the E-Clause type of thing. She had neutral feelings about Neely, had, met her when she had come down. The night that Chris was killed, she was in the house. She at the time was in her bedroom. It was, I guess, a 2-bedroom house. I think it was 2-bedroom. She had her own bedroom, and Chris and Shannon had their bedroom. Chris and Shannon's bedroom had its own bathroom. And then there was a second bathroom, I guess, out in the place somewhere. So the child had her bedroom, and Shannon was in her bedroom at the time that Neely came in. And what happened was that the state had explained in opening that Neely had come down to visit Chris to do this paperwork bullshit that they all do that never works, and never has worked ever. And that that on a Saturday night, Neely was staying at a hotel prior at a Courtyard Marriott in town, but on Saturday night slept at Chris's house. That she had stayed up all night long on Saturday night, didn't sleep, and on Sunday was the day of Chris's murder at night. That she was asking Shannon to, let's go down to the Keys and party and get drunk, and we'll have the child drive us, even though the child was 15. But Shannon did not like Neely and wasn't about to go partying with her down in Key West. So at the time that Neely, during that Sunday, Neely was, and I hope I have the days right, I think I do. That Sunday, she went food shopping, this, that, they were all hanging out the house, whatever, had pizza for dinner. And then in the evening was when the homicide occurred. Again, the child was in her room talking on FaceTime to a boy that she liked, and Shannon was in her bedroom, her and Chris' bedroom, doing something, and Chris was in the kitchen, and Neely was in the living room. And Neely then pulled a gun and shot Chris, who was standing in the kitchen. And so here's what the child had said. That around 9 p.m. she thought she heard something fall like a large piece of wood, and the sound was loud and it scared her. So she quickly ran out into the hallway and stopped, and she saw that there was a bullet casing that fell right to her feet, on her feet. She looked up and saw the defendant, Neely, holding a gun right at Christopher. And she said, I saw her shoot him. And the state said, what was Chris doing? The child said, he was holding his back in pain, screaming out in pain. And I saw her shoot him. Again, what, and then the state said, did you hear her say anything? And she said, he didn't fall after that second shot. He was trying to hold himself up, but he was making his way down to the ground. And then she noticed I was standing there and went and pointed the gun at me. Then my mom was coming out of the bedroom and she pointed the gun at me and my mom, but it jammed. She didn't shoot me. She just was struggling with it, pointing it at the ground and trying to cock it back a few times. And that didn't work. So then my mom and I ran into the bedroom. And then, but they did see her raise it up again at Chris. Then they ran back into the bedroom and they locked themselves in the bathroom that was in that master bedroom. Then they heard more shots after that. Then they didn't hear anything, except the child testified that when she saw Neely with the gun pointed at Chris when she first came out, she heard Neely say to Chris, you're keeping my kids from me, you bastard. And he said, please don't. That's what she had heard her say. While they were hiding in the bathroom, Shannon called 911, had some difficulty getting out because I guess it's, sporadic cell phone signal, which of course Neely always will think is a conspiracy theorist of NSA trying to fuck up her phone because she's so important, right? So then, 1 minute. Then, while the mother was calling 911, and we've heard that 911 call, she said she heard pacing outside in the living room or somewhere outside in the hallway, and then heard footsteps, which was Neely, coming into the bedroom and went right up against the bathroom door where they were hiding and saw the shadow of her feet there. And I don't know if Neely tried the door, but said she couldn't get in because it was locked. So here's Neely going after them. I mean, this is a sick woman, and it was really scary. And then they heard Neely's feet walk away and go into another room that's adjacent to where they were, which is the other bedroom, I believe. And they heard Neely make a phone call, and they heard Neely call and say, Mom, I shot him. I did it. I have to get out of here. That was the exact quote that they heard her say in the next room. Then they heard her try to gathering stuff up. They knew that she was still talking to the mom, but couldn't hear any other words. And then they heard the door shut and slam. And they finally got out of the house when the officers were there. She said she was in shock. She was in complete denial. She was angry. She said that she, really, that Chris meant the world to her, that Neely had taken someone that she really loved. She showed with the photos, I believe Mert had shown everyone photos of the interior of the home that he had gotten from, I guess, the state or had ordered from the clerk of court. And Neely, and then Liliana used the little pointer for the computer to point out exactly where she was standing, exactly where the gun casing hit her feet. Can you imagine running out of your room and gun casing falls on your foot? Can you even imagine that? And you're 15 years old? Terrifying. And showed exactly where Chris was as well. Sam asked, was Neely's mom there in court today? Yes. So Neely's mom and her sister were in court, but they were sitting outside in Florida, and I believe it's in all states. The parties will, once the trial has started, you say, we invoke the rule. And that means that anyone who's going to be testifying as a witness needs to be excluded from the courtroom. We don't want a witness to hear other witnesses' testimony and then align theirs one way or somehow modify their testimony based upon what other witnesses in the trial say. We want witnesses to have full and frank testimony and to be honest and not have their testimony tainted by any other witnesses. So since Neely's mother and sister are going to be witnesses called by Neely, they had to sit outside. But every time I went outside on the mid-morning break, lunch break, everything, they were right there sitting outside, just sitting there, on their phone or whatever, sitting there. So, I mean, it's clear that Neely's not going to be calling them today, I would assume. But I don't think there's anyone telling them that they should probably, they could go home today.
Remember that incident where a witness or somebody was admonished because they were going out into the hallway to talk to the witnesses that were going to testify? That was Neely's mom they were talking to.
Okay. So that makes sense.
Yeah, because the judge said, don't do that. If we can't, this could throw this whole thing into a mistrial and we'd have to do it all over again. The judge was really upset about that.
Yeah. And if you think about it, it's not like they could even, once there was a lunch break, eat lunch with Neely or something, because Neely's, right back to jail.
Yeah,
they can't even speak with her at all.
Holding room.
There's no texting with them, nothing. So it was, they're just kind of sitting there. You wanted to tell him, lady, you're not going to be testifying today. Like, go to the mall or go back to your hotel or something. But, of course, I'm not going to say anything. So, yeah, they were there, but they were just sitting outside for 8 hours.
Yeah, and the reason for that is Neely's mother is going to be called by Neely as a character witness. So that's why nobody can talk to her.
Well, it's everyone, lay people say this character witness bullshit. Character witnesses would never be relevant in the trial unless you're talking about sentencing. So how Neely is, whether or not she has propensity to commit the crime or not, is not relevant to whether or not she committed the crime. Otherwise, the state could bring in all sorts of bad act evidence of things she had done in the past in order to try to convince the jury, hey, if she did this bad thing, she probably did this bad thing. So that is never, never allowed. And neither is someone there to just bolster someone else's testimony or to give a character reference. And here is my friend Policy Blades. Did the prosecution have Neely's mom on the list? No, they did not. Even though they had listed many witnesses in the supplemental discovery you may see online, they listed verbally the witnesses that they were going to be calling when they were voir direing that jury. There was like 12 people. And Neely's mother was not one of the people that they stated. So I don't believe they intend to call her as a witness. So it's one thing is having a witness list. I have witness lists for all of my cases, and I might have 50 witnesses on the witness list, and I may only choose to bring 15 at the trial. So that's allowed too. You always give, more than less because you want to be on the safe side when you're listing your potential witnesses. All right, then Neely cross-examined little Liliana, who was, again, very timid, but, tried to be strong. And this is what Neely said to Liliana, the child, who she had tried to shoot on November 15th, I think it was, 2020. She walked up to the podium and said to the child, I haven't seen you in a while. How long has it been? November 2020, 3 to 4 years, I think. I haven't seen you in a while. I couldn't believe it. Everybody was sitting there going, the child, of course, is sitting there like, oh my God, I haven't seen you since you tried to fucking murder me with a gun. And then I saw you murdering Chris Hallett. And now you're saying, oh my God, I haven't seen you. Oh my God. This lady is fucking wacko, right? All right, so that happened. And I'm sure that that was just such a turnoff to the jury and to anyone in the audience. We were just, that's just inappropriate. All right. So then she tried to have a problem with the things that she had told the deputy compared to the things that she had testified in trial. They were actually exactly the same. Exactly. She then tried to enter in a defense exhibit. It's not time for her to enter exhibits yet. It's not her case in chief. She has to wait until it's her turn, her case in chief. She had an attorney. He would have known that. This could have been impeachment evidence, but she did not reserve Liliana after this testimony. She didn't subpoena her. So Liliana is gone to Neely. Neely will not get the benefit of ever impeaching her with whatever evidence she had there. And again, should have had an attorney. Shouldn't have listened to the Canadian woman and the Telegram woman and the fake judge. All right. Then here we go with more testimony. She was talking about a journal entry by the child. That got absolutely nowhere. She asked, do you remember the day before us dropping you off at the skating rink? And the child said, yes. And she said, remember we picked you up and you were 6? Yes. Do you remember your mom and I were really concerned? And we were thinking you were poisoned. I mean, can you even imagine having fucking people like this in your life if you're a child? You have a stomach ache and they're like, were you poisoned by the deep state? Jesus. Ugh. All right. So then she asked the child, did you do drugs that night? Did you smoke marijuana that night? And the child said, no, I was sick because I didn't have any money. I didn't buy water and I was dehydrated. Oh, so your mother didn't give you any money? Objection sustained, objection sustained. Then she started really doing jabs to the child. So she was saying things like, do you remember when your mom left you in Michigan? Objection sustained. Why did y'all lose your house in Michigan? Objection sustained. I mean, this is not helping in front of the jury. Neely looked like a bully, a complete bully, especially after the jury had already heard this child literally squealing, hyperventilating in fear and in absolute terror on that 911 call.
Kim.
And then she asked, go ahead.
Kim. Okay, would you explain Florida's law on temporary insanity? Somebody asked the questions there. I'm curious.
Sure. Is there an insanity plea in Florida? Yes. This is where the trial is, right? Yes. So there is temporary insanity plea in Florida. And we call that not guilty by reason of insanity, which is, I often refer to it as lawyers from law school, NGRI defense, not guilty by reason of insanity. And the standard in Florida for that would be that the defendant would have to prove that, first of all, they make the admission, yes, I did the crime, but I should not be held criminally liable or responsible for that crime because I was temporarily insane at the time. And so she'll be admitting to the crime if you're doing an NGRI defense by definition. And so in an NGRI defense, the defendant must prove and has the burden of proving that they were suffering from a mental disease or infirmity at the time, disease or infirmity, and that such that they did not know what they were doing at the time, or that they did not acknowledge or understand right from wrong at the time. So it has to be the mental disease, defect, or infirmity, and one of these two. Either didn't know what she was doing at the time or did not understand the difference between right and wrong. There has to be those, all of those. And the other two prongs are ors. So that is why the state was saying she can't ever meet her burden of proving temporary insanity because she clearly knew what she was doing. You could even see her, the closest time we could see her mental state in close proximity and time to the offense would be in the arrest video, where she is understanding everything that the police officers are telling her. She is acknowledging their commands. She's following their commands. She's actually giving her husband sovereign citizen legal advice. So she absolutely knows what she was doing. She was trying to make sure that they understood that she had all of this important paperwork in the car and all of this other crap that isn't important paperwork, actually. And so she absolutely was very lucid, knew exactly what she was doing, in just hours after she had shot Chris. So even if she could prove that she was suffering from a mental disease or defect and infirmity, she would also have to prove one of the other ones, that she didn't know what she was doing. She can't prove that. We saw that tape. Or that she didn't understand right from wrong. She understood that. She was, actually telling people, making excuses of why she had to do it. Not, oh, I did it and it's okay. No, she was making excuses. I had to shoot him because of this and that. And then she ran. She fled. People who don't believe it's wrong to kill someone, if you're that psychotic, then you would stay there and make a sandwich, right? You'd wait for the cops. I didn't do anything wrong. Making a bologna sandwich while I wait. So that didn't happen either. She fled. So I don't believe she's going to be able to meet the burden of proof. And she's going to have a psychologist maybe testify for her. The state is also going to have someone, an expert on extremism, and especially with the specialization in QAnon extremism. And that expert, we are told, will explain to the jury with expert testimony that just because you hold whacked out QAnon sovereign citizen beliefs does not qualify under the legal definition of insanity in Florida. So that witness has yet to come. So I hope I answered your question. Now I see Sam has a question. She still doesn't seem to understand the severity of her crime exactly. She's justifying her horrible choice to take a man's life, and that's crazy. That's scary. You're exactly right. This was all just whacked out. She does not understand the severity of this crime. But at some point today, when there was a witness from the crime scene investigation unit that had showed up, who was there to just investigate the body and take DNA and trace evidence from the body and take photos and process the body. Then Neely understood. When that person was testifying, they showed pictures of Chris dead on his kitchen floor. They were very graphic. You couldn't see his face because he was laying kind of on his side, slightly towards his stomach. His head was down towards the floor, and right here in the refrigerator was on one side. So you couldn't see his head at all because he had landed on the floor. He was in a pool of blood over his head. There was a gunshot clearly through his back. He had a white shirt on, so you could clearly see that gunshot. The back of his head had 2 major lacerations in the back of his head. His hair was cut short, military style almost. Huge lacerations. He had blood coming out of his ear. Again, I couldn't see his face because his face was kind of, in between the refrigerator and the floor, so I couldn't see his face. They were very graphic pictures. And as that person was testifying, that was the first time that I believe that Neely realized where she was, that she was on trial for homicide. Everyone was aghast by these pictures. She couldn't even look at them herself. She looked at once by accident and then was sitting there like this with her hands on her face. She slumped back in her chair. She stopped writing notes. She looked completely dejected, defeated. She seemed to understand the severity and the gravity of this offense and what she did to that man. And everyone is sitting there horrified at these pictures of this man in his own blood. Not that I liked Chris, but God, I would never have wanted that to happen to anyone, right? Not even like some of the people over on Telegram, Homestead, the Rant. I would not want them killed or hurt in such a way. No. And if I saw someone trying to hurt them, I would help them. So you never want, even your enemies, you wouldn't want them dead like that. So it was awful. And Neely, for the first time, knew that she was there for a murder trial. This was not about talking about child trafficking or putting forth her evidence, this was about an intentional homicide of this man dead. And everybody was seeing that. It was very grave. So I hope I answered that question. Let's go back to Liliana and finish up her testimony. Neely was asking her things like, well, did the cops take my computer? Did they take my phone? Did they take Chris's computer? Did they take any of our paperwork? Like, what is that paperwork going to do you now? It's over. All right. It's over. She then got, she asked her, you said you saw me shoot Chris twice. I thought you only saw me shoot him once. And the child was like, no, I saw you shoot him once. The shell casing fell on my feet. from the first shot, but I didn't see you do the first shot. I saw you shoot the second shot. And she said that she was in denial because she didn't want to think that Chris was dead. She said she was very angry that Chris was someone that she loved dearly and she lost someone very special to her. So that was just rough testimony. Is there any questions? I see. Hi, Rebecca. Could she stop the trial and plead guilty? Yes, at any time she could. Usually someone would think about doing that, especially if they have an attorney that maybe could say, you know what, state, we're done, give me your best offer right now. That will never be the best offer. That's something that they had been offered months ago because now everyone is prepared for trial. So they won't usually get the same offer unless things were going poorly for the state. Then you might be able to negotiate a good plea deal. But that's the wrong time to want to negotiate a plea deal if the state is kicking your ass. But yes, she could say, I'm done, leave me to myself. Yes, she could plead guilty. And then at that point, if she pled guilty, then the jury would be dismissed. They would have no further role or job in the trial because in Florida, the judge does the sentencing. So if she pled guilty, it would probably just dismiss the jury. They would either plead her out there or just do another date to plead her out because there has to be this colloquy and everything. The sentencing would not happen on the same date because there would need to be this, pre-sentencing investigation report and all of this stuff. And so they would then set a date for sentencing, and then witnesses could come in for mitigating evidence, people that, yes, now it's time for character references and witnesses for Neely, or to give excuses as to why she's so fucked up that she killed somebody. And then the state would bring in Chris's witnesses to cry and to say how much they've missed their loved one, or Shannon and Liliana to say how traumatized. I am sure that those people would have PTSD, as you can imagine. You've heard the 911 tape. So then sentencing would happen, and the judge would listen to both sides, would have an opportunity to weigh in on what the appropriate sentence would be. There is mandatory, minimums with a first-degree murder, and I can't imagine her not getting life, her natural life, without any possibility of ever getting out. And in Florida, we do sentencing exactly like the feds these days. Every defendant serves 85% of their time. There's no good time beyond 85%, and there's no parole. But with first-degree murder, you could serve your entire natural life, never getting out even the 85%. And that's likely what she's going to get because she listened to ladies in Canada and fake judges. All right, next question. L. Kennedy, for real at Paula, whatever happened to the lady she was trying to help that went to jail over a custody issue? How many do we know of like that these people have tried to help and ended up in jail and losing their children? Many, right?
Yeah, there's three separate cases that we're aware of.
I know more than that. All right.
Oh, okay.
I know a lot more than that.
You know, a lot more than doing a lot of things. But probably Cynthia Absug. And I had checked on that recently. She got a relatively short sentence and 2 years of supervised probation. So she's just come off of that. And she has to go through psychiatric counseling.
She lost her children, though. So.
Oh, yeah, she lost the children.
What is ever worth losing your children? Is there anything worth that? No. All right, so that was Liliana's testimony. It was just heart-wrenching. The jury was just completely out of their skin with sympathy for this child. Neely started getting kind of showing her as being flippant and sarcastic and mean and bullying the child. It was objection, sustained objection. It was bad. So that was that. And in fact, she was like, saying things like, do you know your mom wanted to take over eClaws? Did your mom have the password and login information for the eClaws Facebook? And the child's like, no, I specifically remember she couldn't get into the e-clause information. And then at the last question was, so are you happy to be back in Michigan? That's where we ended for lunch. That's what the jury heard before they went to lunch. And I'm sure they wanted to punch Neely right in the nose for that. All right, what do we have? Any questions?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay. The other witnesses were just the people that had the crime scene investigator who had cleared out and processed Neely's vehicle pursuant to a valid warrant signed by a judge. We also, again, had the crime scene investigator that processed the body at the scene. Those are specific people, actually, that processed the body. And that's where we saw the very graphic pictures. And that's where, that was kind of like thud. Neely was like, oh my God, this is what I'm here for, not to bring my evidence. No, it was actually because I killed that guy. And everyone is here. All these, people, this is serious stuff coming in, witness after witness, testifying against me. And that was just, super serious moment. Hi, Catherine Grace. Oops. Wait. Good to see you, John, she said. John, Catherine Grace wants to send you a message. She's happy to see you tonight. All right. The other witness, let me see. I'm just going to see if there's anyone important left. We had John Lytle, who was the major crimes detective, robbery and homicide. He seems like one of the lead detectives on the case. When he was testifying, Neely was just emotionless. I mean, everybody's heard good detectives testify. I mean, they're smart guys. These are guys that, would have been excellent lawyers in law school or doctors, lawyers, Indian chiefs. These aren't stupid guys. And this was not a stupid guy. And guess what? The first thing she asked Detective Lytle, what's your badge number? All right. And then, of course, were you in the military? And he said no. So then she was like, oh, well. She hated him, I guess. She couldn't really get anywhere with him. She was kind of, again, still sitting back in her chair, kind of dejected, knew that, she'd gotten in something way over her head. Then I think that was the major crimes detective. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
There was a million things with that detective. Objection sustained. Talking about, do you know the supremacy clause? Are you trained in the Constitution? Did you enter a PC affidavit? Do you know what judge signed some order in the past? All of these objections, and they were sustained. Do you know why my family couldn't find me in the Georgia jail? How is that relevant to whether or not she shot Chris and was sane at the time?
I always thought they got one phone call. She could have called her mom. Hey, mom, guess where I'm at?
I think she had already called everybody on their way. Apparently, they have text messages and everything from everyone she was writing. So, how are you going to explain that as she's pinging herself down the road? All right. So it wasn't a voiceover. Wasn't Shannon making all of that up. They were text message to corroborate and pinging on down the road where they eventually found her. Just dumb questions like, what did you rely on in this case? Objection sustained. That was it for this guy. Then I had to leave the court to do a hearing, so I did it in my car. But I won. I won my own hearing. And then I went back. Any questions?
Okay. How long before you get to the medical examiner who described in detail the autopsy?
I can go right now. There was another cop that, what's your badge number? Did you serve in the military? How long? What college did you go to? All that crap was sustained, asking all of them about the supremacy clause and all of that sovereign citizen shit. It could barely even get out of her mouth before it was objected to and the court cut it off. I mean, it's just not funny anymore, right?
Mm,
I'll get to the medical examiner one moment.
okay.
The medical examiner testified, and boy, did she have some credentials. Her name is Dr. Tracy Corey. She was about age 55, pretty, bright orange blazer. Of course, she was super intelligent. She's a doctor, but she had like 2 degrees, one of them which was like molecular biology and all of this stuff that was just wowza. The jury was all nodding, very impressed by her credentials. In fact, she was even appointed by the governor of some state, I think it was Kentucky, to be the chief medical examiner of that state, and was a forensic pathologist for the FBI's BAU. You know, like Criminal Minds, that show. Anybody likes that show? I love that show. The behavioral analyst unit. And so she was actually a consultant for the FBI's BAU, which is quite an honor. So she was going to be the shit, right? She was going to. But what Neely failed to object to was that she did not do the autopsy. The autopsy was done by another medical examiner who had since left and is now working in Texas and did not come in for the trial. So, in fact, this chief medical examiner, all she did was look at the notes, reports, the x-rays, all of that stuff, and would be able to testify about what the report and what all the photos would tell her. If I was Neely's attorney, that's not the best evidence. She has absolutely no personal knowledge of the autopsy of Chris Hallett, nor could you ask her any questions about what happened first, second, and third. Neely did not have an attorney because of the Canadian woman, Telegram people, and the fake judge. And so all of that testimony came in because she didn't know to object. So this wasn't even the person that did the autopsy. The lady was in there reading a report, looking at photos, saying what happens in other cases, but nothing about what happened in this case. Why? She wasn't in the room doing that autopsy. So she was there as a expert to give an opinion, but not as a fact witness to give an, the actual step 1, 2, and 3 of the autopsy of Chris Hallett. The whole thing should have been excluded. But so she testified. She showed photos, autopsy photos. There were a few of them. They weren't that graphic. I mean, if you have a weak stomach, yeah, but they weren't that bad. I did get to see Chris's hairy back with the gunshot wound in it. And that was bad. 2 bullets right in the head, man. I mean, just 2 right in the back of the head. When they talk about like 2 in the back of the head, this was 2 in the back of the head. Then like a graze wound on the arm, another bullet through the arm, 1 right under here, then the 1 in the back, and then how she described where the bullet, the trajectory of the bullet. By the way, if anyone's interested, Chris was 229 pounds, 67 inches tall. There was close-ups of all of the entry wounds and exit wounds, if any. So, for instance, there was a gunshot wound in the back, and it was the exit wound. It was a large laceration because it was the exit wound. The bullet actually went into his chest, and so this is the one from his back. Went into his back, so she shot the guy in the back, like fucking coward. Through the back. It went through his chest, through his diaphragm, through the small intestine, through his stomach, cut through his spleen, and then lodged in the back, where the medical examiner who did it could feel the bullet through the skin, so cut it out. She went through every single gunshot wound, showed a photo, showed the close-up, showed the exit wound if available, and testified about where that bullet went inside Chris Hallett's body. This was a 9mm, by the way, that she used as a handgun. And it was found in the car. We saw the pictures of it in the car. We found the picture where she left it in the glove box covered with all of her sovereign citizen papers. And so this was the gun that was used. Ballistics will soon confirm that. We haven't had ballistics yet, but they did find the gun in her car. So let's talk about gunshot number 2. That was, she shot him and it went in through the left side area, where you would cover up with your arm. So the left side area, there was an entry wound close up. There was no evidence of soot or stippling, so that was from far enough away. It entered the body on the left lateral chest. It broke into the 8th rib. It fractured the 9th rib, through the diaphragm, through the spleen, cut through the liver, and exited out of the front of the chest. So this was an in and out. Then photos of the back of his head with 2 huge gunshot wounds right in the back of his head. They had shaved the hair so you could really, see them clean. So for instance, one entered the scalp, went and crushed into the skull, went through the brain, through the parietal lobe, going downward and to the right, went through his brain stem, and she explained he'd immediately be incapacitated by these shots. Went through the left frontal bone, then went right to left and down through the most lateral side of his tongue, and it was found under the left side of his tongue. That's where the bullet was found. So this was graphic testimony. I could go on and on, but I think you get the gist. Jurors were horrified. Neely was clearly outgunned by this medical examiner who had every single credential in the book. Couldn't touch the medical examiner on cross-examination, barely tried, just stuttered all over herself. The medical examiner was not giving her an inch and was not nice to her. So that was the medical. Again, I could go through every single one of these. Were 7 shots that killed Chris Hallett. 7. 2 in the back of the head were the last ones. So, unless you want me to go on, you get the gist of very graphic.
It is definitely graphic.
Yeah, but if anyone is curious, I did take, very detailed notes today, and I typed pretty quickly. So, and every day I'm there typing. And so if anybody wants, any more detail about a certain issue, you're curious, or you had heard something you wanted to confirm, or you just want to read it, just let me know, and I'm happy to, send you that or let you know, anything. My email address is kim@picaziolaw.com. You can look up my office number online, and I give my cell phone out to everyone. It's 954-520-9969. Any questions about that? Oh, hi, Kim. This is from Honey Bear. Hi. Hi, Kim. Has Neely ever apologized for killing Chris? She certainly did not today. She did not. She wants to I don't even know what she's going to say that her motive was. I don't know, because there she is trying to say, Chris is here with me today, and he was my mentor, and I loved him, and we were gung-ho and proving the truth. This is his murder trial, lady. You shot him. So it's very confusing to me of how she's going to explain all of this, or if she's going to be apologetic, or if she's going to come off as justified. Yeah, so I'm confused as to where she's going to go with all of this. Is she saying she's justified? Or is she saying she's sorry? Or that she was crazy? Or that she loves Chris? She just kind of shot him by accident? I mean, what? What's she saying? Like, she hasn't picked a theme yet. So I'm waiting. I've only got one more day. I wish I could stay longer, but I can't.
Yeah, tomorrow's going to be, hopefully, this is going to be midway through the week. And we're on hump day now. And we'll see if Shannon testifies tomorrow and how everything goes. So.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, there was a lady in the courtroom today who, in the morning, I believe she was a former cellmate, or was in the jail with Neely.
Yeah, she was a cellmate.
And she was there with a manila envelope to give documents to someone or the court or something, and to be a character witness. And of course, the court had to explain to her, none of that is relevant to what? Did you kill Chris? intentionally with premeditation, and you were sane at the time. How she acted in the jail doesn't fucking matter, okay? If she was beaten, raped, everything in the jail, that would not matter in this trial. That means someone else would need to go to jail for what they did to her. But it would not come up in this trial. Only whether or not she killed someone, and she was sane at the time. So she has to understand all of this other horseshit, unless it's relevant to those issues, is going to be excluded. If she was raped and murdered in the jail, they're going to have a trial where someone else is a defendant for raping and murdering. All right, it won't be this trial. She won't get off because she was raped.
Well, Honeybear,
Anything
that's
else?
correct because I just want to just comment on your screen. No, because 95% of the time Neely was facing whatever witness came up. And so she would have her back to the audience because the way the courtroom works is if you're looking straight ahead, to the left is the judge and the transcriptionist. You got Neely on the left in front of the bar. You got the two prosecutors on your right, and to the extreme right is the jury. And so when you're talking or doing questioning, you want to face the witness, and you also want to be able to, kind of glance at the jury to see what their reaction is. The only time she would look to the back of the courtroom was to see who was coming through the door.
Which she did a lot. Every time the door
every
opened,
time that door opened,
she's
she was
looking back.
like she was
Even if she was in the middle of,
expecting somebody.
yeah, she'd look back. I mean, was she expecting Donald Trump to come through the door? I mean, he was busy today. And did I stare her down? No. She wouldn't be able to see me. I'm in back of her. She's facing the other way. Has she ever turned and looked at me? Yeah, the first day I don't think she recognized me at all. Day 2, which was yesterday, we caught each other's eye. I still didn't, she wasn't really staring me down. Of course I'm trying to stare at her. I'm trying to look at everything she does. So did I stare her down? Yeah, a lot. As much as I could. Is that prosecutorial misconduct? No, guess what? I'm not the prosecutor. So. And you can't have prosecutorial intimidation. That doesn't exist for a defendant. They're supposed to be intimidating. That's their job. That's how this works. They're supposed to be intimidating to a defendant because they're trying to put that defendant in jail. That's their purpose. It's not something that would be incorrect or improper. They're there to put her in jail. They're not going to be nice.
Okay, and I wanted to allude to something else that happened. During the autopsy photos, Chris Hallett's first wife, the woman who testified, was watching the autopsy photos, and all of a sudden she put her hands up to her face and bent down like she was behind the seats, and she did not raise her head for quite a long time, so she was clearly upset at seeing those pictures of Chris Hallett.
I can imagine if I knew Chris Hallett and he was someone that was in my life that I loved or cared about, and to see him like that, all crumpled up against the refrigerator, head down in a pool of blood. And here's this.
One image could see the one wound in his chest. And, I think that was a very impactful photo. The jury paid very, very close attention. They didn't move a muscle. There's these big, large monitors in the courtroom that both the audience and the jury can see all these pictures. And these are like 70-inch flat screen TVs. So it was very clear what they were seeing.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And it was,
Yeah.
I can imagine if I knew and loved that person, that would have been something that would have, burned an image in my brain that I would never forget. So, you just had to feel sorry. Again, regardless of how I felt about Chris Howard. Surely I did not imagine or want him dead. I mean, I felt sorry. I feel sorry for him now. So seeing him like that, I can't imagine. It's horrible, horrible. So,
Okay, any questions? As we got, Honey Bear is saying that Timmy is a spin doctor. And of course, John hit the nail on the head. So,
this gives him new material. He has to create new material, right?
yeah. And I'm Whitey Bulger again. So.
He has to always think of something to
He's a
write
bad
because he
horse.
can't get a normal job. It's unemployable.
Yeah.
So he's got to just keep on doing this horse shit, making up stories for money. That's fine. That's what he wants to do with his life. It's a shame. I thought he was smarter than that.
Yeah.
Guess not.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what his issue is. Okay, you have anything more, Kim?
That's about it for me. Again,
Okay.
I'm going to be on the phone tomorrow night because I have to leave tomorrow night. But I will take copious notes, and I hope you guys are enjoying these summaries. If you're interested in this case, I hope I'm giving you exactly what you want, which is the facts and kind of putting you into the courtroom so that you can understand who is there, what they're looking like. Oh, by the way, I did get a rough count on the jury. There are 7 males on the jury and 5 females. There's one guy that looks African American. There's another guy that looks almost like Pacific Islander, so brown.
Mhm.
And the rest are all white. All of them are like 30 or above 35. So most of them are in their 40s, 50s. There's one older dude, probably in his 60s. And the one dude is, in his 30s. Most of them 40s and 50s. So we're talking about a mature audience that's not going to, buy into this horseshit. That's not going to be easily swayed by Neely up there acting like a teenager or cheerleader, and then, really being combative with a judge and not following instructions of the court. And you just sit back, you say, well, if she's right there, not, arguing with the judge and not following the rules, what other rules is she going to refuse? She must have, how far, gone is this lady? Because she was really standing up to the judge, and it was highly inappropriate, and it really hurt her case.
Yeah, and in all the years that I have watched trials on my own and then started live streaming about major cases like the Anthony case, I've never seen anything like this. One thing is
It's a good trial.
extremely fast trial. They're flying
yeah.
through. It's like butter on a fry pan, and
Yeah.
it's when they said repeatedly they are going to end this by Friday, and then it's all then it's just to wait and see what the jury does.
Well, the
I'm wondering
prosecutors
if
are
that's
doing a
gonna
great
be
job.
Yeah, they are, and they've got such a solid case. I guess they can speed it up a little bit.
I mean, they literally have confessions on the record, recordings on the record, eyewitnesses to the murder, and the gun.
Yeah.
What else do you want? It being on video, that's what they're short. They have everything else. So,
Yeah, if you go to my channel history and just search gun, that is the video where I took and loaded all the forensics on the gun, the interior to her car. There's over 100 pictures that they took of the car, and they didn't show that many of them in court today.
yeah,
But so
it's very streamlined. Prosecutors are doing an excellent job just giving the jury exactly what they need. It's not all of what you would normally see in a case with two attorneys. where they're going over every single, did you change your gloves? Where's your training? We're not hearing any of that. This is right to the point. So it's just really the most relevant facts, which is cool. It's enjoyable because it's more fast paced. You're getting only the evidence you need. It's kind of like, what you would see on Law and Order. It's more akin to that than your normal trial where everyone is taking a day and a half per expert. So
Yeah, this is the fastest trial I've ever seen of this magnitude.
yes.
I've seen robbery trials. I've seen bank robbery trials take longer than this. So it's really something. So anyway, what I'm going to do is we're going to do the same thing tomorrow. Tomorrow will be we'll both be in court, and then we're going to do a mobile where she either calls in while driving or when she gets, because she probably won't be back in her area until after the show commences. So we're going to do a mobile phone with her calling into the show. So there probably won't be any video because it just depends on how it's because all you'd see is her driving down the road in her car. So, but that's up to her how she wants to handle the video portion if she does. Otherwise, I'll just have her call in and put her on speakerphone, and it'll come through the mic and everybody can hear her that way. So, I'm going to say thank you very much, Kim, for coming in and giving the audience
This
your
is fun.
expert
Yeah.
insight into the law and how these things are handled. And I will see you in the morning
Okay.
in court, and we'll go through another day of this circus. So,
Everyone have a great night. Thank you for listening.
Okay, and I'm going to say goodnight to everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, hit the notification button, and share. We've got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday left, so we got 3 days of this. I'll try and do as good a job as Kim did tonight. I don't know. I'm not even going to come close to that, but I'll give it my best shot. So thank you again, Kim, and everybody else, and good night to everybody.
Thank you.